Good morning. My name is Jenny Hobbs, and I serve as president on your DuPage UU Church Board of Trustees. We want to welcome everyone this morning to our open and inclusive virtual community. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning and pledge to support one another as we explore these paths. We are so glad you were able to find us and join us for our live stream service today. Please check the church website at dupageuchurch.org for updates. If you search under DuPage UU Church on Facebook, you will find a number of ways to be in community with us as well. So today is Science Sunday. We would love to have you join us today at noon for Science Sunday. You can join with our YouTube link that appears on the church website homepage, the same link used to join this service. Next Sunday, we will again have our Zoom coffee hour. That Zoom link can be found on the Members tab of the website and in the weekly church email. And we have one special announcement today. This is from your Stewardship Committee. We build hope here, hope for new beginnings, hope for a sense of normalcy, hope for reuniting, and hope for our congregation's future. Our Stewardship Committee would like to thank the members and friends who already have made their financial promises for the next fiscal year, and more than half of you have done so. Stewardship hopes to turn over our collective promise to the Finance Committee on March 25th, so if you haven't done it yet, this is your chance. That is the amount the Finance will use to create next year's budget, which we will vote on in June. If you have not yet made your promise by accessing the link to the form available in the March newsletter and on the church website homepage under Quick Links, in the next week a steward will reach out to you to offer any assistance you might need in making your 2021-2022 church year promise. Everyone's promise, regardless of amount, counts, as everyone here counts. Remember, we build hope here together.
Good morning. On this day, when your church president and I will be lifting up the work of so many wonderful church volunteers, I'd like to open this service with a well-known quote by the anthropologist Dr. Margaret Mead. "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." May it ever be so. Julia was not able to do the chalice sliding, so we are grateful that Ellie was able to step in at the very last second and do this for us.
We light our chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This church of the open mind, this is the church of the helping hands, this is the church of the loving heart. Together we will care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in the world.
Thank you, Ellie. I invite everyone to join their voices in song. Our opening hymn is "Love Will Guide Us." It is number 131 in the gray hymnal, and the words should be on your screen.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Please join us in our spoken and sung affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
From all who dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung through every land by every tongue.
It is time to gather. And today I have a story called A Lamp in Every Corner by Janine Grossmeyer. Many years ago, in the land of Transylvania, in a mountain valley watered by quick rushing streams and shadowed by great forests of beech trees, there was a village of small wooden houses with dark shingled roofs. The people in the village were of the Unitarian religion, and they wanted a church of their own, a church set on the hillside, and they decided that was looking down upon the village as a mother looks down upon her sleeping child. So all the people of the village labored long and hard to build themselves a church. The stonemasons hammered sharp chisels to cut great blocks of gray stone and then set the stones into stout and sturdy walls. The glazers made tiny glass panes and fitted them neatly into the windows with leaded lines. And the foresters sawed tall beech trees into enormous beams and laid the trusses for the ceiling and covered the roof with close-fitted wooden shingles that wouldn't leak a drop of rain. And the carpenters carved wood for a pair of wide opening doors, setting them on strong pegs so the doors hung straight and square. A bell was brought from a faraway city and then hoisted by ropes with a heave and a hoe to the top of the tower. And the weavers wove fine cloths for the altar table, cloths embroidered with flowers and edged with lace. And the smiths hammered black iron into tall lampstands and hammered thin bronze into shining oil lamps. Finally, when the building of the church was done, the painting of the church could begin. The painters mixed bright colors, royal red and shimmering gold and brilliant blue, and everyone in the village, old and young, women and men, boys and girls, came to decorate their church. They painted flowers, they painted trees, they painted designs around the windows and different designs around the doors. And at the end of the day, when it was finished, when their church was finally done, all the people of the village stood back to admire it, and then to sing a song of happiness and praise. Their village had a church now, a church set on the hillside, looking down upon the village as a mother looks down upon her sleeping child. "We will eat now," announced an elder of the village, because everyone was hungry after a long day's work. "And later tonight we'll come back and pray." So the people of the village went down the hillside to their homes, to their suppers, all except one little girl named Zora and her father, who stayed behind. They had brought their own bread and cheese, and they ate their food slowly, sitting on the grass on the hillside and admiring their new church with its strong stone walls, its tall tower, its magnificent bell. After they'd eaten, they went back inside, and opening those carved wooden doors to go into the gloriously painted sanctuary inside. "Oh, look, Father," Zora cried, running around from pitcher to pitcher with her footsteps echoing off the stone walls. "See how pretty the church is." And she stopped in the center of the church, twirled around slowly. "See how grand?" "Yes, it is," said her father, looking around and nodding with pride. "Yes, it is." "But Father," she said suddenly, "we have not finished." "What do you mean?" "There are tall iron stands all along the walls, but there are no lamps. The church will be dark when the people come back." "Ah, no, little one," said her father. "The light of the church comes from its people. You shall see." And he rang the bell to call the people to worship, and then took his daughter by the hand and led her back outside. And they waited on the grassy hillside next to their beautiful church of strong gray stone. The sun had set behind the mountains, and night was coming soon. Yet in the glowing darkness, tiny points of light came from many directions, moving steadily up the hill. "Each family is entrusted with a lamp, little one," her father explained. "Each family lights its own way here." "Well, where's our family lamp?" "Your mother's carrying it, and she'll be here soon." And the many lights moved closer together, gathering into one moving stream, all headed the same way, growing larger and brighter all the time. And Zora's mother arrived, bearing a burning oil lamp in her hands. The father lifted Zora so she could set the family's lamp high in its tall iron stand. And all around the church, all other families were doing the same. Soon the church was ablaze with light in every corner, for all the people of the village had gathered to pray and to sing. And all through the worship service, Zora watched the lights flicker and glow. She watched her family's lamp most of all. And when the service was over, her father lifted her high, and she took the shining bronze lamp from the lampstand. Its curved sides were warm and smooth in her hands, and her mother carried the lamp home, with the flame lighting the way. The lamp flame lit their house when they returned home, and Zora washed her face and got ready for bed by the light of the flame. "Mother," Zora began, as she climbed into bed to lay down. "Yes, little one," her mother asked, tucking the red wool blanket around Zora's shoulders. "Father said that the light of the church comes from its people." "Yes, but also the people take their light from the church." And over on the table by the fireplace, the shiny bronze lamp was still burning. "And we have that light every day." "Yes, indeed," said her mother. "And when we are not in church, even when the lamp is not lit, we carry the light of truth in our minds and the flame of love in our hearts to show us the way the right way to be. The light from truth and love will never go out. Never? Asked Zora. Never, said her mother, and this bronze lamp will last for many, many years. When you're grown, we'll give the bronze lamp to you, and when your children are grown, you will give the lamp to them, and all of you will carry it back and forth to church every time. But there's only one lamp, Zora said. So make another and let the light grow. And someday tell your children to make more lamps too. And now, good night. And her mother said, and kissed Zora once on this cheek, and once on that cheek, and once on the forehead. Zora closed her eyes and drifted into dreams, while her mother looked down upon her sleeping child. The years passed, Zora grew, the bronze lamp came into her care. She kept it polished and clean, and when the bell rang out across the valley to call the people to worship, she carried the lamp away. She carried the flame, always lighting her way. When the time came, she made more lamps and gave them to her children, who made more lamps and gave them to their children. And so it went on through the years, even until today. And always the light of truth and the flame of love from that Unitarian church on the hillside continued to grow and show them and us the way.
Whether it is a Sunday service or Science Sunday, classes for children, youth, and adults, or special events like Christmas Eve and the winter solstice, these came into existence through the efforts of a great many volunteers, in addition to our church staff. As you see from the slides, we can advance the slides. There are too many names to speak aloud at this time. All the same, we want to lift up the leaders and helpers from this congregation who have offered so much of their time and talent to benefit us all.
Good morning. Today, I would like to share the story of how our family came to join this church. And it's a story I've shared before, so why this story on a Sunday dedicated to volunteers? Well, because this story of how we joined DUUC is really a love letter to the volunteers of this church. First, let me start a little farther back. I was raised a helper. My parents volunteered for all manner of things, and this instilled in me a sense of civic-mindedness. My mother volunteered for the PTA, bake sales, craft fairs. She was my Girl Scout leader, and she coordinated a huge Christmas shop every year for kids affected by low income and poverty. Honestly, she was the person to help with whatever was needed, whenever it was needed, for anyone who needed it. My mom taught me about how you can be of service not only to your community, but to anyone who was in need. My father was also a dedicated volunteer, working with the Telephone Pioneers of America and the Salvation Army for over 40 years. My fondest holiday memories are sitting with my mother, sorting the contents of the red kettles, straightening out the crumpled bills, and searching for big bills and Krugerrands, which would amount to a big donation. My dad's service and dedication taught me to love work that benefits others. I know the Salvation Army has a history of discrimination and harm towards the LGBTQ community, and I am hopeful they will be able to one day align their values with what is right. So I grew up in the Catholic Church. I left it when I was in the 5th or 6th grade and never really got a good grasp of how the church worked, who did what, and how it all came together. I just sort of thought everyone worked there. When I was in high school, I fell in with some Christian kids and spent a summer volunteering as a vacation Bible school helper with my good friend's church, which was hysterical, seeing as how I was and still am a pagan. I loved that summer. I remember being impressed by the small legion of volunteers that came together to make VBS happen for the kids. Pastors, parents, and older kids roped in to help. I thought maybe I could love Christianity, and really, I gave it the old college try, but it wasn't the religion I loved. It was the sense of community from being around all those people gathered around a single common purpose and cause. It felt welcoming. It felt like a home. It felt so good to be a part of something, but it just wasn't my home. So fast forward many years later. In 2014, when Justin and I were visitors to this church, I was so nervous. I was not super fond of organized religion at this point, any kind, and I didn't know how we were going to fit in here. But we were so kindly welcomed by a volunteer at the desk and then handed off to Steve Connett, who was a greeter, who chatted us up before the service and then ushered us to the sanctuary. Steve asked us how we had come to find the church, and I very specifically remember very awkwardly saying, well, I'm a pagan, and I wanted to get that out of the way immediately, and my husband was a Christian, but he's not anymore. And Steve very smoothly was like, okay, cool, welcome. Let me tell you what we're all about here. I was immediately put at ease, and this is still one of my favorite DUC memories. We came again a few weeks later, and Holly Harris was sitting in Cree's Hall with a sign-up sheet for volunteers for the solstice service. Okay, I was really excited about the prospect of a solstice service. This was my jam. Now remember how I was raised? I'm a joiner, and my love language is gifts of service. So I signed up Justin without telling him and myself to clean up after the service, as stacking chairs is a particular specialty of mine, and I was just gonna plan on bringing Justin along. I signed him up for all kinds of things without his knowledge. When I arrived at the service, I was assigned to work at the door with Sue Ross, who was so warm and welcoming. When it was time to clean up, Sue asked what we wanted to do to help. I was happy to stack chairs, remember that's my specialty, but I said that Justin knew how to do sound stuff, and he has experience with sound equipment. She introduced Justin to Steve Cooper, who asked him if he really knew how to coil cables because you have to do it a certain way. And Justin did dutifully demonstrate his aptitude. When we were all done, Sue asked if I was interested in volunteering for anything else, and offhandedly I said, sure. Well, a few weeks after that, I was picking up Ellie from Spirit Play, and Elsie Mills found me in the hallway downstairs. She had heard through the grapevine that I wanted to do something to help, and had I heard about the auction committee? I should join. It would be fun. I found myself at a meeting a few months later, surprised to learn I was not only an auction volunteer, but Elsie had put me down as a co-chair. And so that escalated quickly. Honestly, though, in doing the auction, both in selling tickets and gathering donations, I learned the names and faces of almost everyone at this church in my first year here as a member, which was truly a gift. And my fellow auction volunteers, Kelly Huggins, Anna Harcherik, and Lindy Spreetsma, are now my friends. Sometime later, I approached Kelly Trombley Freitag, who I knew as the volunteer that led our membership class, to offer help with one of the Christmas services. And after I did a reading for that service, Kelly asked if I enjoyed it and would I like to join the Sunday Services Committee. Well, yes, I would. In the years since, I've been a greeter, a counter, a coffee volunteer, helped with the art fair, baked cookies for the annual cookie sale, helped with pads and social action at Planned Parenthood, and Stand on Every Corner. I have served on the Sunday Services Committee, thank you, Kelly, as a worship associate, chaired the YRE Committee and Personnel Committee, and finally joined your Board of Trustees, first as a community trustee, and now as your church president. Justin found his niche that first night and has happily stuck with AV. He co-chairs that committee now and is up in the booth almost every Sunday, including today. And all this from signing up to help stack chairs at the solstice service. The volunteers of this church welcomed us and invited us in. We are here because a volunteer, Steve Connett, a kind man in a cool hat, made us feel so very welcome that first day here. Because a volunteer, Sue Ross, asked me the right kinds of questions and was so genuinely kind and interested in us. And because a force of nature, Elsie Mills, tracked me down in the hallway. And because a volunteer, Kelly Trombley Freitag, figured out something I liked and might want to help with. Volunteering benefits the organization, for sure. And volunteering benefits you know that. But volunteers brought us into this church, and volunteering ourselves brought us home. Volunteering was our pathway to this church. It has been an integral part of how we found our community. We met friends, we did things that made us feel good, that aligned with our values and feel a part of something bigger, all while building a community of our own. We had finally found our home. On February 7th, 2020, I texted Ann Ariano, who was on the board with me, and I said, I may have to take some time away. That was pretty much the last thing I did as president for 4 months, as I cared for my mother during her sudden illness until she passed away on April 20th. But when the quarantine first became a thing, a month after I sent that text, I knew that the staff, the board of trustees, and our amazing volunteers would make this work. And they did. They didn't just make it work, they made it amazing. It was never a question in my mind that this congregation would make something incredible happen, and they did. You did. Thank you. This church would not function without its volunteers. As Rev Mike shared with the first round of volunteer recognition, our volunteers are beyond just the lifeblood of this church. They, along with our members, are this church. I am blown away by the number of things in our weekly DUC Connections email. Just this week alone, there was Monday meditation, Elder Circle, Zoom coffee hour, Science Sunday, Wider Circle, the Jewish Heritage Group Zoom Seder, an AIM workshop about ableism, a discussion on creatures of Norse myth and Scandinavian folklore, and a comparative religions discussion group. There is something for almost everyone, all in 1 week, and all facilitated by our volunteers. And not to mention our volunteers' facilitation of support for local nonprofits. As Anne recently shared with me, what an amazing testament to our vibrancy. Indeed, we have not just survived, we have thrived. And that is thanks to all our volunteers and everyone who is watching who make this community what it is. It is because of you. Thank you.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
If you need me, call me, no matter where you are, no matter how far.
Don't worry, baby,
Just call my name, I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry, 'cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, babe.
remember the days all you and somehow. 'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, babe. Oh no, darling.
No wind, no rain, no winter's cold can stop me, baby.
No, no, baby.
'Cause you are
Ever in
mine.
trouble, I'll be there on the double. Just send for me.
Oh, baby, my love is alive, way down in my heart, although we are miles apart.
If you ever need a helping hand, I'll be there on the double just as fast as I can.
Don't you know that there ain't no mountain high enough,
Ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, babe. Don't you know that there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, babe.
Rev Mike recognized all our program volunteers earlier in the service, and it is my turn to lift up the work of our administrative volunteers. These are the folks that do the work behind the scenes to make our governance and facility run. I have often joked that no one joins a church or committee to negotiate our next trash removal contract, but as Cindy Wunderlich has reminded me that for many people, that gift of service is exactly how they contribute. I would like to recognize your Board of Trustees, which I have the absolute privilege of working with, all the way to our volunteers on the Governance Task Force, Finance, Stewardship, and Personnel, who all keep us fiscally healthy and acting as responsible employers. We have a group that has worked and is still working tirelessly this year to find our next settled minister, our Ministerial Search Committee, and our Transitions Team, which has helped support Rev Mike these past 2 years. Other administrative groups help with our building and community, along with our social justice and caring volunteers that support our community and members at home. I would also like to take a moment to recognize our volunteers that contributed to our community in ways that aren't currently available, like our greeters, our stewards, and the coffee hour volunteers. I know that you miss those roles, and we miss you too. I can't wait till we're all together again. It is inevitable that we will have missed someone on these slides, even after canvassing the entire board and staff, because there are literally 100 to 200 people volunteering at our church in one way or another at any given time, large and small ways. You all matter, and we are so grateful for you and what you bring to our church. Thank you. please join us in singing hymn number 1010 in the Teal hymnal, We Give Thanks.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this food we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
In our congregation, we gather, physically or virtually, each week so that we may each refill our cup. One might say we come to the fount of blessings to be refilled. Now one wonders, is the fount a place, or is it the people at that place? This becomes an especially pressing question when our congregation is socially distancing due to the pandemic. Well, I've always believed that it's the people, the community within a congregation that helps us to refill, recharge, and to reconnect. We help each other, whether that be a kind word in coffee hour, or working together during a community service event, or reaching out to members who are homebound for whatever reason. All of these and more are part of the ministry of a congregation. And we hope we have shown today that the work of ministry is not just the work of a minister. It is our work, all of us together. I think it's safe to say that throughout religious life in America, there's a common misconception that ministry is the work of ministers alone. We may hear the phrase shared ministry, but I'm not sure it's always understood. I have a side story. The phrase was confusing at a church I formerly served because there had been a church named Shared Ministry, and it had owned their building before the Unitarians bought it. So to reduce confusion, every time somebody wanted to talk about the concept of shared ministry, we began referring to it as collaborative ministry. I'm sure we weren't the first people to ever conceive of the phrase, but it was new to us, and using that phrase really helped us clarify our goals. By highlighting collaboration, we were saying that we each have a part to play. It is a community-wide, collaborative effort. The church does not exist without all of its volunteers. Before considering the parts we each play in the collaborative work of our congregation, let's look at the broad underpinnings of our faith. We UUs have a theological imperative to share the ministry, in my opinion. Our faith teaches us about shared ministry, including this bit of wisdom I quote from the UUA. Ministry is no longer an act provided only by those who are ordained or called to serve. Ministry happens wherever individuals embrace the belief that their good works, their volunteerism, their acts can help serve the mission and vision of their congregation. Where formerly people may have thought of themselves as just a volunteer or one of a nameless group of people performing a task, Now, more and more, members of UU congregations understand that ministry is something shared by all who are part of a spiritual community, a way to put faith into action for the benefit of the church and the wider community. We do this work together to make a difference in the world, starting in our surrounding local communities. You know who I believe really embodies this idea of collaborative ministry? It's the youth, our young people. Anyone who has been involved with the UU youth conferences, the cons, or summer camps will already know this. One place where this really became clear for me were the times in the past when I had the opportunity to work with church youth groups planning a youth-led Sunday service for the congregation. I say I worked with them, but the truth is I just helped provide a framework and answered questions. They came up with their own ideas and themes, picked out music with the help of our music director at that place, and then put on the service themselves. During this whole process, I watched these groups make room for everyone to the level that each individual youth felt comfortable participating. Occasionally, I was asked to explain why we do this or that part in a service. The offering, for example. They were surprised to learn that the offering is not about giving money to the church. It's about doing something good for people, whether that be within our congregation or out in the community. It just happens that money is one way in which we are able to do good work, and we are building a culture of generosity to make our collaborative ministries possible. That seemed to be an eye-opener for the youth who had strong values about social justice in particular, and were happy to learn how our congregations also value that and support it through our gifts. But I digress. My point was this. When youth groups plan a service, it's all hands on deck. They share the air, as they say, not letting anyone dominate the process or the service they create. They tap the talents of their various members. They collectively craft a message, and in doing so have never failed to impress me with the depth of reflection the youth bring to their services. I believe I've learned something new at every lay-led service I've attended, including youth-led services, and this serves to remind me that ministers don't know everything. It's true, we don't. The entire ministry becomes richer through the efforts of so many people, not just ministers. To be continued.
Today's offering is by Heather Christensen. Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many, many small congregations. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members, each one of you, by your commitment of time, energy, and resources, helps make that grand vision real. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists, building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. Today's offering will now be gratefully received.
Thanks, Vera. Will you humor me for a moment? Please look at your hands. As my sermon title suggests, the work of ministry is the work of many hands, not just these two hands or the two hands of your next settled minister, but all your hands out there too. The shared ministry, the collaborative ministry of any church is the work of all of your hands together. Someone may now be thinking, yeah, but what if these hands are doing something different than those hands? What if we're working at cross purposes? Learning to coordinate the many hands is the work of leaders in the congregation, of which there are many. But before I go on, however, let me address a source of confusion about leadership in churches. And I know now I'm opening a can of worms. I think that the various concepts of hierarchy that abound and differ from one denomination to another distract from the work of collaborative ministry. In some denominations, there might be the concept of a top-down hierarchy with the minister at the pinnacle, standing on a pedestal, which, let me tell you, is a rather precarious place to stand. In other churches, individualism is a high value, and the minister and other church staff are thought to be at the bottom of the heap as some sort of servants. Other hierarchies include councils of elders or presbyters or external authorities such as bishops. But the confusion arises from the fact that some may not realize that polity and governance are not the same as ministry. The work of ministry which is shared is about mission and vision. Polity and governance may be the way we organize ourselves to do that work, but they're not synonymous with the ministry. That is an important distinction, I think, although I realize it can be difficult for some to separate the two. So regarding hierarchies and the roles of ministers in a shared ministry, let me share a metaphor. Rather than up on a pedestal or at the bottom of a heap, I envision the structures of a church as a constellation of stars. In the role of minister, there may be a star shining there, somewhere near the center of the constellation. But that star, the minister, is not the only star, nor is it necessarily the brightest and most powerful star. But it is there, near the center, helping to connect the other stars to each other, so that they are a constellation rather than a formless field of stars with no relation to each other at all. When we look at our ministry, the collaborative work we do to make the world a better place, it is helpful to remember that we all put our heart and soul into it. It becomes rather important to be gentle with each other as we work together. I'm here with you for an intentional interim period, and someday I will depart, but you will still have collaborative ministry. It will have the hearts and souls of all of you who are lending your hands to the work. And for what it's worth, whenever the eventuality comes about at each of our churches, ministry does not end when a minister leaves, retires, or even dies. A star in the constellation may fade, but another will brighten. In fact, this is a continuous phenomenon throughout the life of a congregation. You are each stars, putting your energy into shining as a star in the constellation, or in other words, being a member aiding the work of your congregation's collaborative ministry. And as time moves along, this or that star may fade, but another here or there will brighten. It's an organic evolution of congregational life as new hands pick up the work that another is ready to set down. It happens all the time with all people involved in a congregation of which the minister and his or her work, again, is only one star in the constellation. I have a message for the newest people who have joined our church community. To continue my metaphor, you are like new stars, just born into this constellation. Here, I hope you find community, and it may even grow into something like a family. Like in all of our congregations here, among the members of this community, you will find caring people who will be there in your times of need. You will also find people with deep passions about addressing some of the most egregious injustices of our wider society. You will find a reservoir of knowledge and intellectuals interested in exploring that with you. And you will find people who balance their spiritual lives with their social lives. They will encourage you to join them in solemn ritual occasions marking major milestones in life and death. And at other times, you will come together to laugh and sing. Most of all, dear new people, along with finding community, I hope you find a spiritual home here. For the longtime members in our congregation, I also have a message especially for you. This congregation has for decades proudly stood in this community as a liberal religious beacon. In our constellation, you are each bright and beautiful stars. I encourage you to reconnect with the heritage and identity of Unitarian Universalist movement because this denomination's values are needed in the wider community now more than ever. Our society has perhaps reached a nadir, the lowest of low points, considering the recent years of leadership, or lack thereof, in Washington, D.C. Over those years, our churches have noticed a so-called Trump bump, an influx of new people seeking a place that feeds their souls, that provides safe haven, that gives them comfort in what was perhaps an age of incivility and madness in our country. Within the embrace of this caring community, you have laughed and cried together, raised children and buried elders. You have become a family. I encourage you to open your embrace, welcoming others in so that they may also join your family. There is such a need for what we UU stand for, and we can make a difference in other people's lives if we make room for them. This is something you can do for any new person who crosses our threshold in the future. I also encourage you to open your arms and include the church staff and your ministers as part of the family and not as outsiders looking in. Also, since this congregation has stood at the forefront of social justice work in this community, I encourage you all to keep working together on that. Working together on some cause that improves life in the wider society is to the benefit of all, but it will also serve to strengthen your already strong bonds to the point that those bonds may be virtually unbreakable. You share with other UU congregations many traits. You are strong, caring, thoughtful, and wise. Build on your strengths, and you will be successful. Here's my final thought for the day. Collaborative ministry and the constellation that is your congregation are both like a dance. Stars dance across the heavens just as in congregational life. A dance may change tempo from time to time, and the one who leads may also change. And yet it is an activity that works best when the dancers are in sync with each other, working together. A beloved UU hymn says, "Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you." That's what it's all about, folks. May it ever be so, and blessed be you all. And I'd like to invite you now to sing and sing. Our closing hymn is Lean on Me. It is 1021 in the Teal hymnal, and the words are on your screen.
Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow.
That was fun. Prophets from years long past have said, as it ever has been, so shall it ever be, that we need each other. We always have and always will. We cannot go it alone. Recall all of the faces you used to see here, of friends and family, even those you had just met. We are all part of something greater. Also witness the faces of people elsewhere, people you may not know yet are in need of help, young and old, mostly poor. This is the call of prophets from all the ages. Let us feed the hungry, let us clothe the naked, let us heal the sick, and let us speak truth to power everywhere. Finally, may the benefits of worship today be embodied in the coming week, and may we all help one another just as others have helped each one of us. May it ever be so, and blessed be you all.